What's going on, everybody? This is Faraz. I'm here with Zach. We're ready to go over everything that we were supposed to go over for Week 11.
Tons of
Last
stuff
night,
going on.
last night got me on tilt a little bit. It has a lot of people on tilt, specifically Kadarius Toney, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Hope everyone's doing well on this Monday morning. We had some good games yesterday. Not as many waiver wire options that we had the week before. One of those waiver wire options didn't work out so well. One of them worked out really well with Christian Watson on Thursday night. And we talked about that on Friday. But let's get into it, Zach. Hope all is good with you. I see you wearing your Cowboys jersey. How you feeling this morning?
Oh, I'm feeling so much better. The Packers game doesn't even exist anymore in my mind. It's gone. we got a big win in Minnesota. I'm happy. Enough said. Tony Pollard, he's looking good. They better keep using him, dude. I know Zeke was coming back from the injury. He's supposedly on the snap count. He still got 2 touchdowns, but they better keep using Tony Pollard the way you're using him because the offense is just so much better.
Yeah, man. It really is, dude. And, honestly, just seeing what he could do, and it wasn't even just the big plays, right? Like he had the big plays, but like you just give it to him, and he just, the way he cuts the corner just to get like a simple, like 8 yards, 9 yards for a first down. It's like nothing for him.
Yeah.
He's just super talented, and it's one of those things. You just got to get the ball in his hands.
He's so fresh because he hasn't had the touches, and he's actually a little bit older than, most running backs, are at that breakout age, but he's just fresh because they haven't used him at all. So he's got fresh legs. He's definitely explosive. And now he's getting used in a receiving game suddenly. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable. I don't think we're going to see 100 yards from him every week in the receiving game. But scrimmage yards, he's looking pretty good, as far as production goes. He doesn't even need that many touches. He got a lot, obviously, last week and this week. But he's not dependent on that. He's very efficient.
These Memphis running backs, man. You got to keep an eye on whoever's coming out of this program, dude. Like they're just versatile. They're just good, man. I don't know what kind of what they're eating or drinking over there, but like it's working. It's working. Before I get into today's podcast, just want to let you guys know that one really cool way, to like make your game day experience a little bit better is by playing Underdog. If you use the code Upper Hand, they're doubling your first deposit up to $100 right now. Make sure you take advantage of that. We went like 50-50 in our picks this weekend, but we're going to be putting up some more picks for tonight on Underdog. I had a few of them, Zach. I'm sure you saw a couple of them, but I do like I do like Jimmy. Under 31.5 passing attempts. He hasn't hit 32 in a couple games now. And I kind of feel like, especially with Collar not starting tonight with the 49ers defense, being pretty good, I feel like he might not have to pass a whole lot. So I like the under there. I also like him to be efficient and throw 2 touchdowns in this game. So I got the higher than 1.5 passing touchdowns for him. I like Brandon Ayuk over 4 receptions. I kind of feel like that one's a gimme.
That one feels like free money. I was going to say.
Free, right? Like that one seems like really low. So I'm definitely like Ayuk is probably the strongest one in my opinion out of the ones that I had. Deebo Samuel, over 11.5 rushing yards. I feel like with his lack of usage there lately, like that's a really low number too. And he can get that on one run. He had 4 rushing attempts last week. And that was with Christian McCaffrey and with Elijah Mitchell healthy. So I like that. I also like Christian McCaffrey to score in this game on the ground. Those goal line carries are going to be there. I feel like in this game with the 49ers potentially dominating. We'll see. You never know because this game is in Arizona, right? So it's not at home. You never know what these games will turn out. Like a lot of the times you go into these games, you're like, you kind of know how it's going to turn out. Doesn't always work out that way. But
no.
I do like McCaffrey to score on the ground this game, get a couple goal line carries. And then James Conner, this is a tough game for him, on the road. I'm sorry, he's at home. However, very tough matchup against San Francisco. Doesn't have Kyler Murray. Yes, they might depend on him, but the matchup might be a little bit too tough to overcome. I'm not sure how well they're going to be sustaining drives against this team. So I do have him under or lower than his 71.5 scrimmage yards that he had up, that Underdog has up for today. So if you choose a bunch of these, you're going to basically be multiplying your money. You can choose, 3 picks, 4 picks, 5 picks, and you'll end up 6xing, 10xing, or 20xing your money. and just use code Upper Hand when you do download and when you do make your first deposit, so you can get that 100% match that they offer. All right. With that being said, let's get into it, dude. Let's talk about yesterday's games. And there's a lot of stuff that you want me to get to, guys. We'll get to it, I promise. Okay. There's a lot of interesting things I know you want me to talk about Kadarius Toney right now. I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna do it. Okay.
You're gonna restrain yourself.
No, not yet. I'm gonna restrain myself because I don't know, man. Feeling some type of way about that one. But we'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Let's talk about the Patriots. Let's start with them. Damien Harris, right? If you were watching Red Zone, you saw Damien Harris like kind of rip off some chunk plays, and you're like, coming out of the bye, are these two is Damien Harris kind of making his way back into this rotation? And he is, he even, outperformed Ramondre on the ground. And Damien Harris is looking as healthy as he can be, right? However, Ramondre Stevenson still was on the field for 78% of snaps. He still had 21 opportunities. So, if you're watching Red Zone and your teammates, your league mates are watching Red Zone, they saw the big plays from Harris. If you need a running back, I'm sending an offer for Ramondre right now, right?
Yeah.
Because with the numbers that he had, he still looks like an RB1 rest of season. And I was thinking about it. I was like, it was in the back of my head, like, after this bye week, I wonder, after this bye week, I wonder, with Damien Harris getting a little healthier, how much will he kind of like shift this rotation just a little bit? And he didn't really. He just so happened to get a touch on the snaps that he was on the field for. So Ramondre, man, looking like an RB1 rest of the season. After the bye, if you're not going to make any sort of change, it ain't going to happen the rest of the season. So I'm sending offers for Stevenson if I can.
Yeah, just look at the way that he was used and the production that he had, even in a game where this Patriots offense did nothing. I mean, absolutely zero. No touchdown score whatsoever. He still
and it was a tough matchup.
Yeah, in a tough matchup. He still put up 14.2 points. He caught 6 passes. That receiving work is what's going to buoy him even through these bad weeks. We've seen this, with Ramondre Stevenson. You might look at Damien Harris and go, oh, well, he did have 65 yards on 8 carries. And yes, I was watching Red Zone. I know what you're talking about. It seemed like every time they cut to the Patriots game, which wasn't often, it was Damien Harris having a long run. But Ramondre Stevenson, just kind of floating under the radar with his passing work. And that's what's going to make him, extremely valuable and much more valuable than Damien Harris moving forward. I like Ramondre Stevenson to get 6 targets, each week more than I like Damien Harris to run for 65 yards, average 8 yards a carry, 100%. So I'm not worried about Ramondre Stevenson. Like you said, the opportunities, the snap share, they're all going Stevenson's way still, even with Harris doing his thing. Harris might continue to be, a little bit of a thorn in the side because he is a good running back. It's not that he's not a good player, but Ramondre Stevenson is just, the complete package for the Patriots, and they should continue to use him as such, moving forward and down the stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And, looking at another running back who got extra opportunity this week is David Montgomery. He was on the field for 80% of snaps. He got 20 touches. He totaled 121 yards, and he's a borderline RB1 play, high-end RB2 play, as long as Khalil Herbert's out.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know what? Justin Fields, too, like, he's hurt, right? Like, he got his shoulder. He has a shoulder injury now, and we'll see. We'll see about that. We haven't necessarily, we haven't got any word on how severe it is. He might miss a game or two. We never know. But either way, if Fields is out, I would assume they depend on Montgomery more. But at the end of the day, you kind of want Fields to play so this offense can move.
Yeah, I mean, my assessment of David Montgomery moving forward, even though Justin Fields, played really well, it's not going to depend entirely on whether Justin Fields is injured or not. But my analysis is that David Montgomery is pretty good. He looks like he's doing what he needs to do. This is kind of what we expected with Khalil Herbert being out. Tristan Ebner was pretty much a non-factor. He got 6 carries, but he only took it for 8 yards. David Montgomery, he's just going to get all the work at this point. That's all you have to worry about with him. I don't think his ceiling is tremendously high, whether that's with Justin Fields on the field or not. If Justin Fields is playing, there's a good chance he's taking a couple of those touchdowns for the Bears each week. But if he isn't, the offense is just going to be that much worse. And David Montgomery, his ceiling is going to be capped anyway. But he's going to be a fantastic, RB2 play for you, I think, moving forward with low-end RB1 upside, I think, each week. And that's kind of what we saw. It wasn't a fantastic matchup. It wasn't like a very good matchup either against Atlanta. But I think that David Montgomery, we can expect this type of week moving forward. 21 is right around where I think he'll settle. most weeks as long as he scores a touchdown. But he has a nice solid workload to lean on now that he didn't have before.
Yeah, 100%. This was an easy one to pick, right? Like, and his prop this week was pretty low too, with his rushing prop, and we were able to smash that one pretty successfully. But yeah, man, Justin Fields, let's hope that he's okay, because it could be an AC sprain. It's possible that that's the case. He could miss a week or two. Hopefully that's not the case though, because we've been dependent on him, and even in this game, like, he didn't put up a monster game. He had a little bit of a tough outing,
It was
but
still really good. I mean,
he still put up a very
23
solid
points. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Right?
That seems like his floor right now.
Yeah. 100%.
The way he's rushing the ball.
And they said this injury, it's a shoulder injury. It's his left shoulder, right? So maybe there's a chance he plays through it. He doesn't need that left shoulder. You can put it in a sling. We saw Baker Mayfield do that, but obviously, Baker Mayfield's Baker Mayfield. Hopefully we don't get those results. Either way, regardless, though, I think this is going to limit his rushing usage if he does continue to play, if he decides to play through it. Obviously, if he's out, you're not going to start him. But if he does end up playing through it, he's going to have to rely more on his arm, which, isn't necessarily what we want to see. I mean, he's been able to do really well because of his rushing ability, and that's what's really kind of elevated him. I'm not sure how much I trust just his arm if that becomes the case. I think the design runs will go way down. We're not going to see 18 carries a game like he did. He had 18 carries against the Falcons. I don't think we'd see that. So I would temper expectations regardless moving forward, even if he does say he's going to play, if it's just a minor shoulder injury. Injuries like that tend to decrease the amount of rushing attempts that they'll get, I think. And we saw kind of, we've seen quarterbacks get hurt and then they don't run as much. Hopefully it's not the case for Justin Fields, but like Dak Prescott, we saw he used to run a lot more and he doesn't anymore. Whether that's because of the injury or not, you could say you can make an argument for or against that. But Justin Fields, hopefully he's good, because he's been a cheat code for fantasy, and you've probably been riding him into a playoff contention if you haven't.
The Falcons in this game, their backfield went from a 3-man rotation to a 2-man rotation between Cordell Patterson and Algier. So we're making progress here.
Yeah.
These two, like, they pretty much split snaps down the middle. I think both are startable. If this continues, obviously Patterson's ceiling gets lowered. I would have assumed that Patterson would have taken a bigger lead in this backfield, but Algier has looked good, in his opportunities, so far this year in Patterson's absence. So we could see this 1-2, continue as is. Patterson, he broke the record for kick return touchdowns yesterday, which is kind of cool to see. So you probably got the 6 points from that as well. So that's great. But this is a little bit something to monitor moving forward. But I think both these guys can be started. I would say Patterson is like a low end RB2, and then Algier is a high end RB3.
Yeah, I think they're really similar, and I don't think it's going to really be a hot hand kind of thing. They're just both going to get their snaps. Cordell Patterson, I think, gets, like you said, the edge by just a little bit. Their upsides, they're just going to, they're just going to kind of screw each other over as far as upside goes. Because once Cordell Patterson, gets his touches, then they're going to get Tyler Algier on the field a little bit. And Tyler Algier looks really good. And, obviously he's a lot younger than Patterson. Patterson still looks good running the ball, but it's going to be hard to keep Algier off the field. I think they're going to be, primed for more of a 50-50 split, more of what we saw against the Bears this week moving forward.
Kyle Pitts, he looked like he had a bad knee injury, unfortunately. Yeah. We're waiting results of an MRI to see what's up. It looks like it's an MCL sprain, and that would be a good thing, to be honest with you, because you obviously don't want an ACL. Judging by the video, a lot of people thought that it might be an ACL injury, but if it's an MCL, it's good news. But he could still miss time. So we'll see. Now, if Pitts does miss time, then Drake London, becomes a bit more viable moving forward. Maybe. I don't know.
Hopefully.
But Pitts has seen a ton of targets though. Like, the target share has been huge for Pitts over the last couple of games. So with Drake London being like the sole guy, like, obviously you're gonna see like Zacchaeus like catch long touchdowns out of nowhere, of course.
Damiere Byrd.
Damiere Byrd, right, exactly. But I think Drake London can be potentially pushed into maybe a top 30 wide receiver. Maybe.
It could be. He could be. It just depends because this is obviously a run first offense. Obviously you hate to see Kyle Pitts go down, but it makes your job a lot easier when you're choosing between tight ends now. If he would miss time, you know what I'm saying? With the way the tight end landscape is, you don't have to worry about starting. But the funny thing is, in this game where he went down, he was actually looking pretty good as far as production. It wasn't too late in the game that he went down. He had 5 targets, 3 catches for 43 yards. He was actually getting the ball.
He was on his way. It seemed like he was on his way to a big game.
It seemed like he was on his way to at least a tight end 1 performance, which would have been awesome, but hopefully it's nothing too serious.
I feel like that stat line right there is already a tight end 1 performance.
That's what it feels like these days. I mean, Travis Kelce,
if you caught 3 balls for like 45 yards, I feel like that's already, that puts you in the top 12 among all tight ends for any given week.
Yeah. If you were choosing like guys like Hayden Hurst, he had 1 catch for 21 yards, and then he had 1 more catch after that. Like the tight end landscape is so barren. And then you have Travis Kelce putting up 3 touchdowns on Sunday night.
Travis Kelce, man, like his lead, among tight ends, like, is unbelievable. Like the positional advantage you have if you drafted Kelce, that has helped you a ton. Like that has helped you so much. So that if you have Kelce, like you're the biggest positional advantage of any position right now. If you have Eckler, it's a nice advantage, but it's not a huge positional advantage over the next guy. Same thing with Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp, like not a huge positional advantage over the next guy, right? So at the end of the day, like if you have Kelce, like you are absolutely rolling. So it seems to me like next year, early in drafts, like we're gonna have to prioritize guys like Kelce, but if there is no guy like Kelce,
and that's
then you won't really do it.
Yeah, unless you're getting Kelce, do not draft a tight end. At least the way things are going right now, do not draft a tight end until late rounds, because you could just get the same value for a guy that's in the late rounds as you are going to get in the mid rounds. Like I made the mistake, I took Kyle Pitts in the 3rd round this season in one of my drafts, hoping that he would be able to come through and reach that upside, because he is still a unicorn. It's just really upsetting that he hasn't been able to hit that, and some of that's out of his control, just the way the offense is schemed. And, Marcus Mariota at quarterback. I had a little bit more hope because Marcus Mariota did make the Laney Walker, a tight end 1 a few years ago. So it's been disappointing for Kyle Pitts. This is a rough setback. Obviously he wasn't doing amazing things for you in your lineup, but this is just another blow. We don't want to see Kyle Pitts go down. Hopefully it's nothing major, like you said. Like if it's an MCL sprain, okay, that's fine. ACL would be that would maybe tank his stock a little bit, moving forward.
It would hurt his dynasty stock by a little bit. Yeah, it would definitely hurt his stock a little bit. I would still buy. I'm still buying right now. If it's an MCL sprain, definitely still buy. But even ACL, I'm okay buying. I wouldn't expect a whole lot, next year.
Yeah.
Moving on to Baltimore, Demarcus Robinson ended up catching all 9 of his targets for 128 yards from Lamar Jackson. Should we be paying attention to this? Because Devin Duvernay only had 1 target. Right, Duvernay hasn't seen a high target share at all, and we've gotten a decent sample size, of Lamar missing Rashad Bateman, right? And Robinson saw 24% target share, 18% target share, and now 27% target share over the last couple of games. So they have Jacksonville next week, so maybe Robinson can be an option in deep leagues. He also has a decent schedule too, like playoff schedule as well. Yeah. So if he pans out as like Lamar wanting to go to him, and he looked good in this game. So if Lamar wants to go with him and he makes him his wide receiver 1 moving forward, and then you look at that playoff schedule, like he might be a little bit of an underrated ad.
He could be an underrated ad. I think it's tough to say, like, should we be paying attention to this? Yes, obviously you should. With the way that the Baltimore receiving core is, wiped out, they don't have a whole lot left, with Rashad Bateman out, Mark Andrews was missing. No, he played, but he was playing a little bit injured. He's been missing the past couple of weeks. Somebody has to catch the passes in Baltimore. And if it's not Rashad Bateman, I think it's just going to be, back and forth. I don't think that, what's the name? Demarcus Robinson is going to have this type of game week to week. Maybe, like you said, in terms of his value right now, it could go up depending on whether, like you said, Lamar Jackson sticks with him. But I wouldn't count on this type of production. Certainly not, 9 catches and 128 yards each week. I think it's, kind of liable to go either way. Devin Duvernay could turn around and have
Demarcus Robinson. If Demarcus Robinson scored 9 for 128 every single week, he'll be the overall wide receiver 1.
Yeah, well, maybe.
yeah. I mean,
I don't think that's going to happen.
He would literally. I don't think so either. Hell no, of course not. But can he maintain a high target share? Right? Can he be viable? Like, can he be this if you do pick up Demarcus Robinson, you're like, can he be a viable wide receiver 3 for me moving forward? Right? Like that's what it's
Yeah.
really about. Like if he catches 9 for 128, the dude's the new Amon-Ra St. Brown. But we know that's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So it's more about like, can he be viable? Is he fantasy relevant? Like that's really
he
what it's
can
about.
be
Here.
viable. I think he can be viable, and that's pretty much where I put his ceiling. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's going to be too. I'm not sure he reaches this ceiling again the rest of the season, unless.
Who would you rather pick up this week? Demarcus Robinson or let's see, who do we got? Mac Hollins. Demarcus Robinson or Mac Hollins this
Not
week?
Demarcus Robinson.
Yeah. Mac Hollins got some targets yesterday too. I think he had
some
like 9
targets
or something like that.
Yeah. Some targets.
So, obviously with, Hunter Renfrow missing and Darren Waller missing, that might be a decision that a lot of people have to make. So I think I'm going to lean Demarcus Robinson as well, just because there's a chance that, he is Lamar's wide receiver 1.
Yeah. I guess at this point, yeah. If you're scouring the waiver wire for, the next waiver wire hit, it could be him. Like you said, there's not many situations out there where you have a chance to pick up a wide receiver 1 on a team on the waiver wire.
This is a pretty barren waiver wire this week, I would say. It's not a whole lot.
Outside of Samaje Perine.
Yeah, outside of Samaje Perine, that's probably it. And we'll get to Samaje Perine in a little bit.
Yeah.
So it turns out that a neutral site for Amari Cooper is just fine.
Yeah.
12 targets, 8 catches, 113 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Both him and Donovan Peoples-Jones came through this week. DPJ caught 5 for 61 and a touchdown as well. But Nick Chubb, he couldn't get anything going on on the ground at all. 14 carries for 19 yards. Like that might be the worst game ever by Nick Chubb. Like I've never seen him do that before. And I'm assuming that most of that was not his fault. Because Nick Chubb can do no wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Amari Cooper, dude, like, it's one of those things where, you got to embrace we talked about this with Amari Cooper. You got to embrace the volatility. You can't take him out of your lineup, because if you do, there's going to be games like this where he's sitting on your bench. So you have to eat it when he stinks. And when he comes through, you have to have him in your lineup, because otherwise you're going to be picking the wrong weeks where he goes off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't be pulling Amari Cooper in and out of your lineup. That's the thing with these types of boom bust players. You hate to have them when they bust, but when they boom, you're winning weeks. He's the overall wide receiver 10 in terms of points scored right now. Obviously we've seen that production come in bunches, and then he doesn't produce at all. But if you were watching the game, he had a really just a massive first half. I think at the end of the first half he had 6 for 91 and a touchdown, which is awesome. And he pretty much went away for the next quarter and a half. And then in that garbage time, the last few minutes of the game, the Browns put together all these drives suddenly, and scoring drives too. Like Amari Cooper, he was catching touchdowns. He was a couple inches away, I think, from a 2-point conversion that I saw. And Donovan Peoples-Jones, he really came through at the end with a touchdown to kind of cap it off. He's been on a bit of a run himself too. He's actually a viable receiver. But the thing about Amari Cooper, the neutral site's one thing. Yeah, he had a great game on neutral site. We're not going to pay much more attention, as we know that, home away, it's an odd trend that we're seeing with Cooper, but he can get better. This is Deshaun Watson coming back in 2 weeks now? Is that what it is? So
yeah,
Jacoby Brissett is doing this with Amari Cooper. We've seen Amari Cooper do his thing. He can. It's not like he can't play, and it hurts me to see him play really well because Dallas lost him. But Amari Cooper, he's a really good fantasy receiver, and he was a value. I think at this point, the way where he was going in drafts coming into the season, it's looking like that was way too low. Amari Cooper is going to be. I think he's a wide receiver 1, absolutely, in terms of fantasy, a low end wide receiver 1 most weeks. With the upside to be, a mid to high end wide receiver 1 each week. But then also, it goes the other way too. If he has a bad day, he's like a really strong boom bust option, which is weird to think, because the game logs will tell you that he's boom bust, but his overall points scored are so high. It's just like he doesn't feel like a Gabe Davis. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And he has to be ranked at least probably in the top 15.
Yes.
Every single week.
Let me just think where you had him coming into this week. Last week, I know you had him at wide receiver 20.
Yeah, I had him at wide receiver 20, and I think we adjusted during the podcast to
We
like
did,
move him
yes.
up because it was too low.
Mhm.
Those are my if I'm not mistaken, those are my hangover rankings. Um,
Yeah.
with my wife and I. It's funny. I was reviewing the podcast like because I wanted to see how how things were going. So I listened to the beginning part of that podcast, and I thought it was just funny. I was listening to it this morning, and I was just like,
Mhm.
wow, like I really powered through that one because I remember how I was feeling that morning.
Right.
And we did all right. We did all right. So I was
Yeah,
happy
it was
about that.
good. You know, I couldn't tell much of a difference. You know what I'm saying?
That's
It's
good,
not like
man.
you were
That's good.
slurring your words or anything. Like you were
I was
good.
doing. Hey, man, I was powering through.
Yeah.
But okay, so I want to talk about Washington's backfield real quick. Antonio Gibson, he ended up with 21 touches. He totaled 103 yards. He outcarried Brian Robinson, and that's big, right?
Yeah.
If he has a chance of outcarrying Brian Robinson, and he's going to be involved in the pass game, right? He already has a role in all three downs. 68% of snaps in this game. J.D. McKissick was just put on IR, and because of all that, Gibson's going to have an RB2 floor every week, and he hasn't hit that RB1 upside yet, but he has RB1 upside.
Yeah. I think at this point, that's kind of the way things are trending. I wasn't a big Antonio Gibson fan just because, like I said, I thought that, the coaching staff wasn't enchanted with Antonio Gibson anymore. They wanted to give Brian Robinson the reins, but Antonio Gibson's workload has been fantastic. And it's one thing, get the receiving work, you could pin it on that. Like, okay, Antonio Gibson's value is a little bit higher because he's getting the receiving work and Brian Robinson isn't getting any. But he just outcarried Brian Robinson, like you said. So that is serious usage, in this backfield. Even with Brian Robinson getting 15 carries, Antonio Gibson outcarried him, which is like really good. It seems like they found a good formula that's going to help them to win games. Granted, this was against the Texans, and they have a really bad rush defense, but Gibson's going to be able to get it done each week. Like you said, as an RB2, he's a very solid play. I wouldn't be upset starting him there at all. As a flex, he's a really good play. RB1, I wouldn't want to start him there, but the upside, it could be coming in these next few weeks because Brian Robinson, he's just relegated to the early down ground game role. It's just 15 carries for 57 yards, 5 points. Like it looks good, if when you watch him play to play, Brian Robinson, he looks like a nice little like the hammer, the thunder to Antonio Gibson's lightning, but it doesn't amount to much in fantasy. His role is just not conducive to fantasy points.
No, it's not. Like look at what Isaiah Pacheco did, right?
Yeah. I'd argue Isaiah Pacheco's a little bit better, just because he looks more explosive.
Yeah. Well, and the offense too is better, but like it's the role that we're talking about, right? It's like even on the Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco's role, he went over 100 yards in that game, but like what did that really get you? He didn't score.
Points.
So, and he wasn't involved in the pass game at all. So he didn't give you much, right? 10, 11 points. That's it.
That's what we call the empty calories. Yeah.
Yeah. In a standard league, sure, that's fine. That's great. But in a PPR league, like whatever, right? That's replaceable.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like Antonio Gibson, the fact that, and this is less about that him going up against Houston and the production that he had. Like I don't even care. Like all I know is that like was the production good enough? Okay, great. Now let me look at the opportunity. What that opportunity looks like. Where did the opportunity come? Oh, it came on early downs. Oh, it came on passing downs. Oh, like he's getting targeted. Like,
yeah,
this is what you want to see, right? And he's getting targeted by Heineke, and this offense is looking okay. They have a couple good receivers. They got a tight end who's coming along a little bit now. So, this is an offense that, we might see some situation. Antonio Gibson also, like, he's going to be used near the goal line too. So he's getting all of it.
So yeah, a touchdown. A touchdown yesterday would have changed the complexion of this performance by a mile. But he still looks really good.
Exactly. And that's why I think, that RB1 weekly RB1 ceiling is there for him. I'm probably going to be ranking him as like a top 18 running back moving forward. But that top 12 upside is there every single week.
Yeah. Okay. I think he has injected a little juice into this Washington offense, but I'm not going to call them, a passing offense at this point. Their best chance for success is on the ground. And I think that's where they're leaning, and that's what they're going to continue to do the rest of the season. And the funny thing is, their defense has kind of stepped up. They don't look like a bad team, which is kind of annoying, having the last team in your division doing so well. But, the Washington doesn't look bad. So this isn't a wasteland necessarily, as much of a wasteland as it was earlier in the season.
And after the game, Ron Rivera said that he's going to stick with Heineke for the rest of the year, and Carson Wentz is going to be the backup. What that means is that Terry McLaurin, even though he didn't have an amazing game, this past week, he is going to get the target share for the rest of the year, and this just boosts his value for the rest of the season, which is this is amazing. If you have McLaurin, he didn't have the most amazing game this past week. It's probably because I ranked him as a top 10 wide receiver.
Might be.
But like moving forward, you're happy.
Yeah.
You're happy that this move was officially made by Ron Rivera.
That's the thing about Taylor Heineke. He knows to throw to Terry McLaurin. And Carson Wentz, he wasn't doing bad. He was distributing the ball, but it just wasn't going to Terry McLaurin the way that it should have. With Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel's good, Jahan Dotson's good, but when you have a guy like Terry McLaurin of his stature, and obviously he's a leader on the team, and you don't get him the ball, Taylor Heineke, I think, understands that you can get him the ball. He's going to do good things, and that's not just for fantasy, but for the team overall, and it's going to continue to go that way now that he's a starter.
100%. And by the way, Curtis Samuel scored a rushing touchdown, but he hardly got any targets. You have another week. You have like 1 day to sell him.
Yeah,
just get rid of him.
If your trade deadline hasn't even passed. But
yeah,
I think
I'm assuming the trade deadline
yeah
would be today or tomorrow, like for your league. If the deadline was this week,
right?
Basically, okay. Terrible outing for Dameon Pierce. 10 carries for 8 yards, was on the field for 77% of snaps. But Davis Mills and this offense, like you have alluded to multiple times on this show, is holding back Pierce a ton.
It is such a problem because, like I said, the talent is just so good with Dameon Pierce. He looks really good. It looked like for a second he might be able to overcome this offense. You might be able to be the motor for this offense and at least will it to some relevance. But this offense is just terrible. The passing game is non-existent. Davis Mills, he's going to be replaced after this season. No surprise there. They're going to be drafting a quarterback coming up in this next draft. And you might just have to eat it with Dameon Pierce now if you didn't sell, like I told you to a couple weeks ago. But I'm just saying,
you might have been right about that, dude.
This was my concern, and I'm not saying it's going to continue because Washington, they're not a bad front. They're not a bad defense, and Chase Young's be coming back, but that's not going to affect Dameon Pierce. However, this was the concern that he wouldn't be able to produce enough because the touchdowns weren't there. A touchdown wouldn't have even saved him yesterday. The offense is just so bad. There's no chance of him having any type of upside at this point, I don't think. I think his ceiling is now a mid RB2, unless his offense turns on a complete dime and looks a lot better than it is. Because otherwise, Dameon Pierce, we saw against the Eagles, he could rush for 139 yards and not score, and he's just going to be a middle-of-the-pack running back. And yesterday, we saw this offense really just fall flat on its face against Washington. And he turned in a really bad performance for you this week. And his value it's just cratered these past 2 weeks.
With that being said, I'm not benching Dameon Pierce.
No, I'm not saying you bench him, but
I'm still starting him as a mid RB2, against Miami next week and against Cleveland the week after that. It's one of those situations where he's on a bad offense and you're going to have these type of games. If you need an RB2 at this point, after this bad of a performance, you can buy him and you don't have to spend that much.
Yeah.
Because he only had 3 points in this game.
That's what
in PPR, at least he had 3.7 PPR points in this game. So people are frustrated. He hasn't had a big game since before his bye several weeks ago. So you'll be able to get him cheap, but don't have the same RB1 type of expectations. He can still have those weeks like he had before. Like if he's, against Philly, he had the 139 yards just 2 weeks ago. If he scored a touchdown in that game, that would have been an RB1 week. It can still happen. And he hasn't scored a touchdown since before his bye, where he scored 3 in a row. So those touchdowns can come. It's just that, it's one of those situations where you gotta, as of right now, I love the role switching for him. Over the last 3 weeks, though, he has totaled 6 targets over the last 3 weeks. That's not going to get it done. You know. And
3 of those targets came yesterday.
3 targets yesterday, 3 targets the week before, and 0 the week before that against Philly.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be on a bad offense, you can't depend on early down carries for your fantasy running back. It's just not going to work out that way. So for Dameon Pierce, he's an early down back on a bad offense who's not getting targets. That's not a recipe for continued success, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay. It's unfortunate. His talent is there. It can get better. I don't think it's going to anytime soon, but down the stretch, it could be a little bit better. Just right now, this offense is in a funk, and it's already a bad offense. You get a bad offense in a funk, this is what you get from your running back.
100%. And you know, it's not like his schedule is that great anyway, to be honest with you.
No,
Like
it's
even
not.
even in the fantasy playoffs, you know, he has Kansas City, Tennessee, and Jacksonville with the KC. You know, with KC, like, you know, it's not the best matchup in the world. And on top of that, will they be in a negative game script? Potentially. Tennessee, really, really tough matchup in Tennessee. And then Jacksonville, you know, he could come through in that game.
Yeah.
But
Jacksonville would be a good spot for him to come through. But that's way off in the distance at this point. Chances are, if you have Dameon Pierce, you know, you're not going to be playing for a championship. You're not going to be in a championship when time comes.
Fighting words.
Yeah.
Zach. All right. The Colts, they had 2 2-minute drives in this game. One in the first to end the first half, one for a potential game-winning field goal in the second half. And Deion Jackson was on the field for both of them. What are the Colts doing? What are the Colts doing here? And why are they doing that?
Jeff Saturday, I thought we were better than this. You showed us what you can do last week.
You play fantasy football. You handed off your team to somebody else. Come on, dude. All right, like if your team is trying to win the game at the end of, you know, in the fourth quarter, you can't have Deion Jackson on the field, man. Right. All right, Deion Jackson caught 4 balls for 3 yards. Okay, can we put Jonathan Taylor in on those situations, please? All right, yeah. I mean, this is a minor nitpick because JT got it done, but like JT being out there in those situations takes him from being an RB1 play to a high-end RB1 play. Yep. If he gets 2-minute situations, his value moves up like a good 20%. Yeah. So, it seems like, you know, that Jonathan Taylor is going to be able to do good things, you know, have RB1 weeks with the work that he's given right now. Yep. The talent obviously is there, and he's been looking good so far, right? Like over these past 2 weeks. So, you know, judging by what I've seen from Jonathan Taylor over the last 2 weeks, you're good to go for the rest of the season.
100%.
Like I wouldn't worry about anything with Jonathan Taylor. But you don't have Nyheim Hines anymore, man. You don't need to put Deion Jackson on the field for those situations. It is what it is. It sucks. I did not see this coming because Deion Jackson is just a replacement level player.
Mm-hmm. He's just a guy, and he's in the NFL. He's probably doing much better than I can do. So I don't want to, you know, just crap on
Zach. We're not comparing him to you.
Yes,
or me.
I know.
Comparing him to other NFL players.
What if Deion Jackson listens to this podcast? He's like, hey, don't listen to Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. You know, I'm just thinking, I'm just making sure.
No one's going to be able to hear him.
Yeah.
No one knows him.
Yeah. But Jonathan Taylor needs to be on the field in those situations. He's your best offensive weapon, and you're not going to have him on the field when you need to go get points. Like, it felt like the Colts went up, and then they were just like, oh, we're up against the Eagles. And then they just started playing keep away. You know, Jonathan Taylor, he had 48 yards on the first drive. He finished with 84. You know, that's it. Like, why would you stop giving to Jonathan Taylor? That worked for you the first drive. You go away from it completely. Obviously, you know, there's nuance to the game more than that. But, you know, I'm not complaining about the way Jonathan Taylor produced either. He did just fine, you know, for what we wanted him to do. But like you said about his value being much higher if you can get those 2-minute snaps, you wouldn't think it's going to be that much of a difference, you know, if a player gets the 2-minute snaps or not, but it makes a huge difference.
It does.
You catch, you're on a drive.
Leagues.
Yeah. You're on a 2-minute drive. If your offense is going down the field, if you catch 3 passes for 25 yards, that's 5.5 more points for you on top of whatever, just at the end of the half within 2 minutes, you know,
exactly.
It's a huge difference. And that's kind of what we saw with Jonathan Taylor. If he had just a couple more catches, you know, he would have had a much better week, obviously, but, he could have cracked the 20-point threshold.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. He would have.
That's like my bar for, okay, you had a good week, 20 points. It's like, that's where you had a really good week. He could have hit that if he was just on the field for just even one of those drives, you know, 2 drives, and you put Deion Jackson in both of them. Like, try putting Jonathan Taylor in for 1. Just see how he does. Like, we know he can run the ball, but he can catch a ball too. We talked about this last week that he can catch. You know, he's not, you know, this world-breaking Nyheim Hines talent when he's pass catching, but he can get it done. And I think definitely better than Deion Jackson. Jackson had that one game where he had 10 catches a couple weeks ago in relief of Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. But outside of that, like you said, he hasn't shown anything to say that he should be on the field over Jonathan Taylor.
He had 10 catches, but it's not like he took those 10 catches and had 100 yards with or anything like that. He was pretty inefficient on that too. So,
right.
Anyway, all right, that's enough complaining. So something that, you know, I'll be happy about if I had Devontae Smith or AJ Brown, even though they didn't have a huge game. And without Dallas Goedert, you know, they got 64% of Jalen Hurts targets. Those 64% went towards these two guys. So this was a tough matchup this week. I'm expecting some more, blow up days for these two moving forward because 64% of targets to two players, yeah, that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, and that's the way it's going to be moving forward. There's no question about whether these two are going to be able to contribute. I was more leery of Devontae Smith about how much of a workload he would get with Dallas Goedert out, but he got 9 targets and he caught 6 of them for 78 yards. He looks just as good. Maybe not in terms of explosiveness. I want to say he's just as good as AJ Brown, but they're both they're different receivers, but they're both very good. So both of them are capable of garnering targets, like wide receiver ones should. And with Jalen Hurts, a quarterback, playing the way he's been playing, there's no question that they're going to be in line for some bigger weeks. And we know AJ Brown, he's been in a bit of a slump again, and we know what happens. The last time he was in a bit of a slump, we talked about the touchdowns not being there. They could be coming in bunches, like you said, not just for AJ Brown, but for Devontae Smith, because by anyone's standard, watching the Eagles yesterday, this was a subpar performance for the offense, and they still won.
Definitely.
So,
yeah, they're playing the Packers on Sunday night, so that should be a good one. And maybe if the Packers put up a fight, but yeah,
Christian Watson can give him a shot.
It's true.
We'll see.
It's true. And you know what? Like the Packers secondary hasn't been great.
Yeah.
So this could be a situation where these two can do their thing. Looking forward to that. Let's see. It looks like the biggest beneficiary in terms of usage after the Cooper Kupp injury is Tyler Higbee. His route participation finally went back up. He's not blocking anymore. He ran about on 89% of dropbacks, 29% target share, which turned into 8 targets. So, Allen Robinson caught his weekly 4 of 5 targets for 47 yards. I feel like that's been his stat line. Matter of fact, I didn't look at it. I just know that it just looked super familiar to me. That's pretty much what his game log has
5
been.
for 54, 4
yeah,
for
you're right.
Yeah, that's
4 for
about what he's
47,
good
4
for.
for 44, 3 for 24, 5 for 54, 5 for 63. Yeah, literally, like that's
4
what
for
his
53.
stat line has
Yep.
been.
Mm-hmm.
But he caught a touchdown this week, so great. Whatever.
Yeah. Good on him. He got it.
I guess he's like a top 36 wide receiver. He's like a low end wide receiver 3 for me, Allen Robinson. Like even without Cooper Kupp, not much changed for him.
Yeah, he's not stepping into the Cooper Kupp role. I mean, we knew that even before Cooper Kupp went down, that he wasn't going to have that type of role in any situation, regardless of whether Cooper Kupp is on the field or not. But I guess you could say, I think his floor has gone up a little bit with Cooper Kupp out to the point where he might be worth consideration in your lineup as a flex.
Sure.
I'm not expecting too much from him. I think Matthew Stafford's down again with a concussion.
He is.
I don't know if that's going to be an issue moving forward. 2 concussions now in back-to-back weeks. I don't know if they play it safe. I'm not sure really. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how they handle that, especially long term. But if there's any turnover at quarterback, that's obviously not good for Allen Robinson. He needed Matthew Stafford to have one of his best days of the season, to put up 14 points, catch that touchdown, go for his token 4 for 40. But if there's a backup, I don't like him very much at all. But if Matthew Stafford's playing, like I said, I think he might be worth consideration as a flex, but that's about it. His ceiling, anything higher than that, if he achieves anything higher than that, it's just going to be, very unexpected. Nobody's projecting him to have any type of high ceiling. Like a lot of people were saying he was going to have coming into the season. He's been a disappointment.
And John Wolford, who's Matthew Stafford's backup, he has a neck injury, so he didn't play in this game. Bryce Perkins took over as quarterback. He looked like he liked to run a little bit.
Yeah.
So someone to pay attention to. He was scrambling quite a bit, and if he ends up getting the start next week, might be worth looking at in Superflex leagues.
Yeah, could be.
Let's see. And on that, okay, so Kyren Williams ended up playing the most snaps of any Rams running back on Sunday. 55% of snaps this week. This offense stinks. If you need to drop him, go ahead. If you don't need to drop him, decent hold on your bench simply because he was the clear passing down back. He was also on the field in some short yardage situations, and he also got 7 carries on top of that. So, in terms of who led the backfield this week, it was Cam Akers. Darrell Henderson literally came on the field to start the game, and he wasn't seen since. Like we need to get his face on a milk carton because we have no idea what happened to him after the first quarter. No one saw him. His whereabouts are currently unknown.
They're gone.
So I don't know. But Kyren Williams, like he could have a 3-down roll, not an every down roll, but a 3-down roll. He kind of had a 3-down roll already in this game. So Some to pay attention to. Like if you're in a 12-team league, I think he's worth a hold on your bench if you have like 6 bench spots or more.
Yeah.
But other than that, I wouldn't bother because this offense stinks. But if his snaps end up going up even more, and he's getting like 15 touches with 3 or 4 coming in the pass game, he'll have some value.
Yeah.
But I love how I had to like preface every single statement I'm making because this offense stinks.
That's the way it feels with this offense, you know. And I'm going to preface this with the fact that, you know, this backfield is not going to be the same week to week ever. You know, if Cam Akers got his carries this week, well, maybe next week it'll be Darrell Henderson's turn again. And maybe the next week it'll be Kyren Williams. You know, nobody in this backfield is going to get a secure enough workload for them to really, you know, be worth consideration in my mind to start in any type of league, unless you're really in trouble. The offense stinks. The run game is not good. Their offensive line is in shambles, which is like one of the roots of the problems. It doesn't help that Matthew Stafford's going to be out again, but Matthew Stafford hasn't exactly been good either. Cam Akers isn't at all what we thought he would be. Darrell Henderson has been mediocre, you know, in his performance, at least for fantasy, you know, in filling in for whatever Cam Akers wasn't going to do. And then Kyren Williams, he's the only one that I think you could still have hope for as far as upside goes, because he didn't look bad playing. You know, We've seen Cam Akers look bad. We've seen Darrell Henderson look bad. Haven't seen Kyren Williams look bad yet. And that might not happen this season, the way things are going. And you're not going to be able to evaluate him, obviously, in this offense right now. But he's the only one that really gives me hope to have any type of upside in this backfield. So if you're shooting for upside in this backfield and just hoping for the best, and you're really in a crappy spot, then yeah, Kyren Williams, I would hold him just in case things start swinging his way a little bit more. But I wouldn't count on any type of relevant fantasy production to help you get into the playoffs, or in the playoffs, you know, for the rest of the season. The Rams season.
What a high bar we're setting for Kyren Williams here. It's like he's the only guy who doesn't suck.
It's not his fault. It's not his fault that we're setting the bar so low. It's
not your fault, Kyren.
No,
it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
it's just a lost season for the Rams.
Yeah, 100%. Do you think Deion Jackson's like mad at us right now? That's what I'm thinking.
What is he in the chat?
no. I'm just wondering. We've been talking shit. Listen, man.
Now you're thinking about it.
If you're listening, man, like I feel bad. Like I'm a nice guy. I like to be a nice guy, so I don't want to talk too much shit. All right. Anyway, actually, I want to talk shit about DeAndre Swift real quick. He ran a touchdown in, okay, but he's still the third option in the Lions' backfield behind Jamaal Williams and Justin Jackson. Jamaal Williams, though, 3 touchdowns on the ground. This dude cannot stop scoring touchdowns. He's another one. It's like you can't take him out of your lineup either, because you never know when he's going to have 2 touchdowns or 3.
Yeah. Hey,
or 0.
He evened out, because what happened was we said he was good for 2 touchdowns or 0. Then last week, out of nowhere, he scored 1. And I was like, oh, we got to get those 2 touchdowns somehow. So let's spread it out. It might not be in 1 week, but we're going to spread it out. We're going to get 3 touchdowns to bring the total back to a nice even 12 touchdowns on the season. Like, that's just ridiculous. Jamaal Williams, you know, he's been a really good piece for you if you have him. You know, no one, I don't think, expected him to have this type of workload this deep in the season. But at this point, you know, DeAndre Swift, I'm hitting the panic button. He did score. Okay, cool. But what is he doing, you know, getting less carries than Justin Jackson? It makes no sense. Like, DeAndre Swift, I've seen him run. He's very talented. It's just not making sense to me why they wouldn't use him. He has to be healthy at this point. He has to.
He looks good.
Yeah, he has to be.
He looks good.
Why are we using 3 running backs? You know, it makes no sense. If anything, you know, at least make it just a split between Williams and Swift. Williams has proven himself. He's a good running back. But, you know, give Williams the goal line. Okay, that's fine. Give Swift the receiving work. Give Swift just some carries on early downs. Why is Justin Jackson playing? And Justin Jackson doesn't look bad either. It's not Justin Jackson. It's just DeAndre Swift. He's been there. He's been good. We've seen what he can do on the Lions offense, and suddenly he's just not getting used anymore. I'm hitting the panic button. There's no reason for this to happen. But if you have DeAndre Swift, this is dire straits. You're supposed to have an RB1 coming back from injury, and he hasn't done that. And he doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon either.
You can't start DeAndre Swift right now, like, unless you're desperate.
Yeah,
unless you're desperate. And he's at least he's been scoring, right? Like that's, you know, but the touches haven't been there at all. But yeah, dude. Jamaal Williams is the current RB13 on the year. Unbelievable.
It's amazing as a touchdown leader. He's only the RB13, but that tells you it's just like,
Well, he's not involved in the passing game at all.
It's just a mess of a backfield right now.
Well, you know what? I am looking at PPR. Let's look at his standard leagues. Which he's higher.
He has to be higher.
In standard leagues, in non-PPR leagues, he is the overall RB6 on the year.
Unbelievable. It's weird. Just a side note for this discussion, but PPR, I feel like they should just call PPR standard now. Because I feel like most leagues are PPR.
That's why I try to say non-PPR whenever I can, instead of saying standard.
Yeah.
Because most people who start out in fantasy now, they just go straight to PPR.
Yeah. I think that's the way to go. It makes it much more fun, I think. So. But it adds a layer.
For sure. More points, more fun.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it looks like Wan'Dale, by the way, I just got some news on Kyle Pitts here. He seemed to have suffered a torn MCL, and he's going to need surgery. So it looks like he might be out for a little bit, but he's going to have a second opinion to see what his next course of action is going to be.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I was assuming Kyle Pitts was going to miss time, and it seems like that's going to be the case.
It seems like it. It looks like Wan'Dale Robinson has also suffered a serious knee injury, torn ACL confirmed by the Giants. He's going to be out for the season. And he did it after going off, dude. 13 targets, caught 9 of them for 100 yards. It looks like he could be a very good receiver in the NFL, but we might not. We're not going to see him this season. And hopefully he makes a big recovery and comes back next year pretty strong.
I think he can do it. I'm not going to put it past him. He's still super young. There's no reason to think that this is going to derail his career or anything. Yeah. But it's upsetting because he finally looked like the Wan'Dale Robinson that we wanted him to be for fantasy football. Mm-hmm. And granted, the Giants were playing from behind, and throwing a lot from behind with Daniel Jones is going to present its challenges. But he was getting it done. He had 13 targets. That's really good. Darius Slayton himself had 10 also. It was a high volume game, uncharacteristically high volume game. But Wan'Dale Robinson, it looked like he was going to actually finally have some value and be worth consideration in his starting lineup. And now he's not going to be able to. So the injury sucks. Like you said, wish him a speedy recovery. I think he will. He'll come back strong. It'll be good next season. But he was looking really good. That's all you could really say at this point. I know.
And Darius Slayton had 10 targets himself. He caught 5 of them for 86 yards, and he's going to be their wide receiver 1 moving forward until the Giants sign OBJ. Now, let me ask you a question.
Whoa.
Do you think that whoever wins on Thanksgiving between the Giants, this is a big game between the Giants and the Cowboys, right? Whoever wins this game is going to lead the division. But you think whoever wins on Thanksgiving between the Giants and the Cowboys will be the team who ends up signing OBJ? Is this the OBJ sweepstakes game?
It might be the OBJ Bowl. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of sway, I think, in this game for Odell Beckham Jr. I think ultimately, if he wants to go for a championship, he should go for Dallas. However, Dallas has been allergic to signing anybody. They don't sign players mid-season, really. The last time they did that, they traded for Amari Cooper, and they don't really sign players, big-name players like this mid-season. Obviously the sway of New York for Odell might be contributing to Odell going there a little bit more. I think he should go to Dallas, but they might be able to offer him a bigger contract. The need might be more now with Wan'Dale Robinson out. Not that they had a bunch of talent at receiver in the first place, but now that Wan'Dale Robinson's out, they might be willing to fork over more money to get some help at receiver than Dallas is.
Can I say something, though? If I'm Odell, I tore my ACL a couple times. Do I really want to play on that turf at MetLife?
No, you don't.
Don't do it, Odell. Don't do it, okay? This is – I feel like teams should boycott that stadium, like that turf. Because people getting injured on it left and right. This was a home game for the Giants yesterday, by the way, guys. Okay, Wan'Dale, he tore that ACL on that same turf.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what causes that with the turf, but it's just weird.
So what causes it is with the artificial turf, there's no give to it. Okay. So when you plant, there's a chance that your leg gets kind of it's stuck, right? You can get kind of stuck in that turf, and then you're trying to make a cut and your leg doesn't follow. Right. So that's why that's why it happens a lot on those non-contact injuries too, because you're not, it doesn't have anything to do with contact. Sometimes you're trying to move and your leg doesn't move with you, and then it ends up tearing the ligament. And it's you don't need to do that. And apparently this is not a hard thing to do, to switch this out. And you could do it in days. So it's like the Giants can just do this for the next home game. Like they really can.
Ultimately, I think Dallas is going to win the OBJ Bowl, the sweeps.
Really?
You know, I feel like they're going to get
even
him.
in Dallas, huh?
For that reason, I feel like Dallas is going to win. That they're going to get Odell.
Confused.
They're going to get Odell.
Who's going to get Odell?
Dallas. I think Dallas wins this game on Thanksgiving too.
Okay.
I think. I hope. But I think Odell goes to Dallas.
I think so too.
And as far as what that would, mean for receivers like CeeDee Lamb, I don't think it's going to affect them that much because there hasn't been that much production outside of CeeDee Lamb at the wide receiver position for Dallas. So if anything, maybe it'll help. It'll draw some coverage away. But Odell would have, I think he immediately steps in, even though Michael Gallup, he's a fan favorite. I think that he'd step in and be the wide receiver too. I think ultimately he's going to go Dallas. I think that the game will have some sway, but if the Cowboys win, I think it's going to be, just an immediate signing, Odell with Dallas, because at that point Dallas will be 8-3. They'll have beaten the Giants twice. Dallas should win. Dallas should get Odell. That would be best case scenario, not just as a Cowboys fan, but for Odell's fantasy prospects too. I think
I would agree. Really disappointing day from Saquon Barkley though. He was on the Nick Chubb vibe this week. 15 carries for 22 yards against the Lions. Like really?
That's a little sad.
Really? Like I thought he was going to have like 120 yards in this game. To be honest. But yeah, better weeks ahead for Saquon.
Yeah.
But Tony Pollard and Zeke each had 15 carries in this game. If you had to guess what happened here, what do you think happened? Zeke went ahead to average 2.8 yards per carry, and Pollard went ahead to take those 15 carries for 80 yards, which would be more than 5 yards a carry. But Zeke ended up with 2 touchdowns on the ground, and Pollard ended up with more than 100 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns through the air. So at this point, if Pollard still has a chance of seeing 20 touches, like even with Zeke on the field, which I think the Cowboys are starting to realize now, like get the ball in this dude's hands, you can't take him out of your lineup. The Cowboys just shellacked the Vikings in Minnesota, 40-3. Just a game to forget for the Vikings. But listen, man, if you have Pollard, I don't think you can take him out of your lineup right now.
No. I don't think you can take him out of your lineup. I think you can put him in at RB1 and be happy at this point. The way that he's
he was a wide receiver 1 this week.
Yeah, he was. He was. But,
over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air,
Yeah. No, he was a wide receiver 1. But the usage that Tony Pollard is getting, Ezekiel Elliott is starting to look more like, the change of pace back. Now, Tony Pollard, he's the complete package, and Ezekiel Elliott is now, the thumper at the goal line, the thumper for the short yardage situation. Yeah. And that's not to say Zeke looked bad. 15 carries for 42 yards doesn't sound fantastic, 2.8 yards a carry, but he didn't look bad. He did what he was asked to do. And he put up a respectable day for fantasy too, even with Tony Pollard going off. But you want to talk about upside? This is what we've been talking about the whole season. With Tony Pollard having the upside, he just has to be unlocked. Is this his second game now with over 20 opportunities, or is this his third? I think it's his second. The concern a couple weeks ago against the Bears was the workload going to be there? He produced despite the workload. Now he's getting the workload. We're seeing everything start to kind of line up for him, and this is a rest of season RB1. I think. This is the way he's playing.
This is the second game. This is the second game over 20 carries. I'm sorry, over 20 opportunities for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so are you ranking him in your top 12 next week?
I feel like he has to be at least low end top 12. Just the way that he's playing, the way he's being used.
I would probably agree with you, man. I don't know if I can think of 11 running backs I'd rather start than Tony Pollard.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I would keep him at low end for this week because they did say Zeke was going to be, kind of held back a little bit in terms of his usage with that knee brace. But the way that the Cowboys offense looks with Tony Pollard getting the majority of the carries, I don't think they can go back to Zeke getting the majority of the carries at this point. I think, like you said, they're wising up to that and finding that the offense is much more well-oiled when Tony Pollard plays. There's I don't think there's any reason to think that Tony Pollard doesn't get at least a nice compliment, at least 14 or 15 touches a game now. And that's all he needs. We've seen that.
Here are the running backs that I will play over Tony Pollard next week, most likely. Eckler, Barkley, CMC, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry.
I know we're
Ramondre,
drawing the line.
Dalvin Cook.
Does it become murky? Okay, so say
Alvin
Joe Mixon
Kamara.
say Joe Mixon would play. I'm not sure if he's concussion.
I would play Joe Mixon over Pollard.
You would?
And yeah, I would probably leave him right there. So that puts him at RB12.
Yep. I think that's about right. Because the efficiency we've seen puts him there, regardless. But if he keeps getting
actually,
the
hold on a second. I didn't count ATN.
Oh.
I didn't count what's his name on the Seahawks?
Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker. So there's a few guys. A lot of guys are coming back from bye this week. So, he's right there.
Pollard's a very good starter. Yeah, 100%. He's a very good starter for you. If you have to put him in RB2, perfect.
One of the questions I got, are you starting him over Dameon Pierce next week? The answer is yes.
Yes.
I got a few of those questions yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. He's amazing. T. Higgins is also amazing. He's finally shown what he's capable of. 13 targets, 9 catches, 148 yards. That's the alpha T. Higgins coming out, man. That's what I'm talking about, bro. Yeah. That's what we want to see. That's what we've been waiting on. Jamar Chase might be back next week. So this Bengals offense is going to be looking pretty good.
Yeah. And they look good against the Steelers with TJ Watt. And obviously TJ Watt, he's his own player. He's very good. And he changes the way this defense plays. But Bengals offense looked fantastic. T. Higgins, you said finally did his thing. And he finally got the target share that we wanted to. He got 13 targets. He looked really good. I'm not sure what Trenton Irwin was doing, catching a touchdown before Tyler Boyd. But,
dude, I can't tell you what happened with Tyler Boyd in this game, man. It was an amazing matchup for him. He had a terrible game. He was hardly targeted in the first half of that game. We upgraded Boyd pretty heavily with Chase out. And he's been worse with Chase out, which is crazy. Weird. Like he was getting it done, like crazy. When I traded away Tyler Boyd early on in the year, I'm like, this kind of sucks because Chase just got hurt and now like he looks like a wide receiver 2, but no, he wasn't even a wide receiver 3. During this span, which is crazy. Joe Mixon might be out with a concussion. He'll be in protocol this week. So Samaje Perine would be the waiver wire running back for the week to pick up, probably one of the only ones. But he ended up scoring 3 receiving touchdowns from Joe Burrow. Literally all of them look the same. Like all 3 of them were literally at the right pylon by a hair. So he'll, if Joe Mixon misses, he's going to be a 3-down back on a good offense. So he'll be a borderline RB. Like he's going to be kind of in that tier, I would say, with Tony Pollard, like around that high-end RB2 spot next week if Mixon misses against Tennessee. It's a tough matchup, though. But I am playing Perine over a guy like Dameon Pierce.
Would you play Perine over Pollard?
I would not because of the matchup.
Yeah. I don't feel
like it's a tough matchup against Tennessee.
Yeah. I don't think Samaje Perine, especially if Jamar Chase is back next week, I don't think he's going to be a focal point. Maybe he was last week or just yesterday, I should say. It's funny saying last week, but it was, technically last week.
It was yesterday, yeah.
Yeah. So Samaje Perine, he's worth a waiver wire pickup. Just temper expectations with him a little bit because, like we said, Jamar Chase comes back. They're going to have their full receiving complement back on the perimeter. And Joe Burrow, this is still a pass-first offense, especially with Joe Mixon out. That's going to be the case. I don't think they're going to give Samaje Perine as many carries as they're going to give targets. Targets are going to come, I think, a lot quicker than carries for Samaje Perine, but he'll be a fine spot starter for you. I think, like you said, I would put him over Dameon Pierce.
Yeah, I would consider him a high-end RB2 next week. Just the offense that he's on. If you're a 3-down back for a good offense, like it doesn't matter who you are. And honestly, I think Perine's a good player. I do. Like, in at the times that he's gotten opportunity, like in his career, without Joe Mixon and stuff like that, like he's been pretty solid.
He's I wouldn't call him a high-end receiving back, but he's definitely a plus receiving back.
Yeah, I would say so. I still think Joe Mixon's a better receiving back than he is.
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations where, like, why are you taking Joe Mixon off the field? But that's
right,
a conversation for another day.
Yep.
Najee Harris had another 20-carry game. It's worth noting that Jalen Warren suffered a hamstring injury, so it looks like Najee's going to get his passing down rollback. And he did get 6 targets in this game. But Najee coming through with 90 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns against the Bengals, which was a tough defense, rush defense especially. And he's looking a little bit better lately, man. 26 opportunities is 26 opportunities. So are we upgrading Najee rest of the season?
I want to see it again. I mean, obviously we just saw 2 back-to-back pretty good performances, but I want to see it one more time before I say that, because my faith in his ceiling has been tested, the whole season coming up into these last 2 games. It's looking better. I think we could rank him a little bit higher. Rest for this week, we can rank him a little bit higher. I wouldn't say rest of the season just yet.
Do you think his floor went from 10 PPR points a game to 13.5?
No. I'm still keeping it at 10. I don't think the floor has gone up. Maybe if he gets that receiving work, but like we said, rookie quarterbacks, even though Kenny Pickett, he's been starting a little while now, they still tend to try to do too much. And the targets don't necessarily come to the running backs very quickly because they want to try to do too much and extend the play. They don't want to look to their check down. If that receiving work kind of, we see a repeat of the receiving work they got yesterday, next week, then I'll move his floor up. But right now, I still think it's 10. He's still liable to have, a dud game.
Jaylen Warren had 43% of snaps in week 10. The week before that, 29%, 23%. Najee's workload might increase by a little bit. He might be around that 85%, snap threshold. And, I think Najee can potentially make it back to the top 24 at some point. We'll see.
It would be a welcome.
I don't know.
It would be a welcome return to the top 24, but I
hear you.
I'm hitting the brakes. That's
He's not that good.
No,
he's not that good.
Did you ever see that one play? I forget what it was, who it was against, but where Najee Harris had like 8 yards of open field ahead of him, and he just like cut back and forth for 5 seconds and gained 0 yards
on fourth down.
Yeah, so it's like that scares me because like even though it was obviously a couple of weeks ago, but we saw that happening. He might be creating his own inefficiency. It might not be the blocking because he had plenty of space there. He might be trying to do too much.
He definitely looked a lot better yesterday. He looked good the week before too. Decent. Yeah. So hopefully, if you have Najee, this is best case scenario for you right now.
Yeah.
Pat Freiermuth, 12 targets from Kenny Pickett, 8 catches for 79 yards. He's an every week start, no question about it. Okay, 29% target share yesterday, 27% the week before. Top 5 tight end rest of way, no questions asked. This is an easy one. If you have Freiermuth, if you traded low for him last week, yeah, he's going to get it done for you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, 12 targets to a tight end in today's landscape, take it and run. Doesn't matter if he's even catching. Doesn't matter if he catches 4 of those. The target share is there. That's all you need to know. He's going to get
even
it
on a shitty offense. Even on a shitty offense, like that's fine.
It has to go. The ball has to go somewhere. And if he can make a living, like he caught 8 of 12. If he caught 4 of 12, it would have been fine. What's it called? If he catches 9 of 12, 10 of 12, it has room to get better. As long as the targets are coming, that's all you can ask for pretty much nowadays with a tight end. And he has it.
Breaking news. Melvin Gordon has been released by the Broncos. His time in Denver is over. That whoever just tweeted that. So it's Latavius Murray right now. Okay. Chase Edmonds was injured in yesterday's game. So who is going to be the guy? Is it just Latavius right now? Should Latavius Murray just get a massive boost in value? I'm wondering.
Yeah. Maybe he does. Well,
Chase Edmonds, by the way, Chase Edmonds was being used a lot yesterday's game before he got hurt.
Yeah.
Like he was on his way to like a potential 15-touch game. And he got hurt, and that's terrible. So Chase Edmonds, it's interesting to see like, hey, is Chase Edmonds is he okay? Because if his injury is not that serious, he will be somebody that we should be picking up off the waiver wire this week.
Yeah. I think that Latavius Murray could be a nice pickup. I'm not sure Chase Edmonds, if he's not, injured too bad, he could be picked up. But I think Latavius Murray is going to have a better,
Is Latavius Murray rostered in more than 50%? I would assume he would have been already.
He's rostered 25% of leagues on Sleeper.
Oh, never mind. Oh, yeah. You got to pick up Latavius then.
Yeah,
for
pick
sure.
Him up 100%. Just go get him because, this Denver offense, they score 1 touchdown a week. And he's been the touchdown scorer a couple weeks. That's his MO. Yeah. He's going to run for 50 yards and a touchdown every week. And that's what he's been doing, this season. That's what he's done everywhere else he's played is on the Saints, wherever he's gone, he's been doing that, having that type of production. Definitely worth a pickup this week. He could be a spot RB2 starter for you if you need him.
I'm curious to see how. Like, I'm really curious now. Like, what is just Chase Edmonds' injury? He's an ankle injury, but is it serious or not? All right,
Right.
we'll find out. We'll find out. Before we end this podcast, Kadarius Toney. Okay, I don't want to talk too much about it because I can't deal with it.
All right.
Hardly involved to start the game. Had one target. He left with a hamstring injury. All right, let's remove him from the potential league winner list right now. Okay.
Yep.
Maybe we should have seen this coming. Maybe we should have thought that maybe he does have a perpetual hamstring problem, even though we thought it was magically repaired by coming to Kansas City. But this isn't a good look for him at all. And like what was even more interesting is that he wasn't on the field for most of the plays to start the game. And all this hype just to come crashing down. And of course, last week when he scored that touchdown, of course he had to be limping in the end zone, pretending his hamstring was hurt. And now this week, his hamstring's hurt.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that, Kadarius.
Yeah, okay? I think we had one of the overlays that we put on here. It's not here right now, but I put in that Kadarius Toney was hamstringing your lineup this week. I thought that was pretty clever, but that's what he did. I was so looking forward to seeing Kadarius Toney, explode on Sunday night. Like this was a matchup we were kind of waiting for. All that anticipation too. The schedule makers moving it to Sunday night. They flexed this game to Sunday night, right? I think that's what they did. And, building up the anticipation all day, sitting there with Kadarius Toney. Can't wait to see what he does. And he puts up a donut. That was just like, that might be one of the bigger letdowns of the season. Just on a week-to-week basis. That's a pretty big letdown.
It really is. I'm done. Travis Kelce, he goes ahead and has a 100-yard, 3-touchdown game to help you win your week. We talked about that already. Sky Moore saw 6 targets on only 16 routes run. I would thought that he would have run more routes even with Kadarius Toney getting banged up, but nope. He was really the only Chiefs pass catcher that mattered in this one, outside of Travis Kelce, pretty much. Yeah. We had Justin Watson catch a long pass, but that's about it. That's a great throw, by the way. That Justin Watson, it was a over the shoulder, amazing.
Are we surprised?
Keenan Allen was back. Mike Williams was back, but Williams left right after his first catch. He seemed to re-aggravate that high ankle sprain. Wasn't a good look for him. He left the game, didn't return. Keenan Allen came back when 5 for 94 on 8 targets and seemed to leave the game unscathed. This is a huge sign of relief for everyone who has Keenan Allen. Yeah. Okay, seems like you can actually play him as a wide receiver too moving forward. The good news with Allen is that he was able to do that on somewhat limited reps too. He only ran a route on 74% of dropbacks. So expect that to move up to 95% moving forward. But of course, on everybody's bench, it was Josh Palmer who went for 8. He went 8 for 106 and 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. With Keenan back, Mike Williams back, you probably didn't start Josh Palmer. You're like, what is he going to do? Yeah. This is what he did. He ended up ruining your night.
Yeah, no, I woke up. I'll admit, I went to bed a little bit earlier than the game ended. I wasn't watching because I got early mornings. But Josh Palmer, I woke up, I was like, what is he doing? He has no business scoring 30 points with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen starting the game. And granted, Mike Williams, like you said, went down really early, which was really disappointing. I made a couple of lineup recommendations this week saying to start Mike Williams. Some people who DM'd me can't really account for the injury happening like that. So I feel bad, but
he would have had a good game.
Yeah, Josh Palmer, you don't want to overreact to this performance, but with Keenan Allen operating on the other side, now he's no longer drawing that, top coverage. Not that I think anyone was shouting him in the first place, but having another weapon on the field for, like Keenan Allen on the other side, it might free up Josh Palmer a little bit to be a bigger contributor than he has been the past few weeks. And the other thing that I want to note, just with these pass catchers coming back, is that did Justin Herbert look better? I thought he looked really good. Obviously 20 really points. It wasn't a fantastic performance, but it's much better than what we've seen from him. And I think that, better days are coming even than yesterday. We saw him look better with more weapons. And now, if hopefully Mike Williams is back sooner rather than later, but with Keenan Allen in the field, I think Justin Herbert looked like a completely different quarterback.
I think that Keenan Allen on the field makes a much bigger difference than Mike Williams being on the field for Justin Herbert. And, Josh Palmer, I think he's going to be able to do his thing moving forward. If Mike Williams has to miss time, the Chargers have the Cardinals next week, which is a good matchup. They have the Raiders the week after that, which is a good matchup. The Dolphins the week after that, which is a good matchup. The Titans the week after that, which is a good matchup. So, yeah, some good matchups on the way. So, if you have Josh Palmer, keep him. If you don't have him and he's available, pick him up.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And
Okay.
if your trade deadline isn't, if you still can trade, I'd say go trade for Justin Herbert if you need a QB.
Yes,
I've been kind
agreed.
of beating a dead horse on that one, but go trade for him.
All right, last topic. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He was somewhat involved early, but he's already been diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. Andy Reid just came out. Andy Reid didn't even look at the prognosis. He just like, he has an injury. He's out. I drop him at this point. I drop CEH. It looks like this early down job is Pacheco's moving forward. He did have his first 100-yard rushing game this week on only 15 carries. It was a good matchup, though. But he has a pretty good schedule rest of the season for running back. So Ronald Jones is likely going to be active moving forward. So he's worth a prospective add as like the early down handcuff to Pacheco in deeper leagues. And that's really about it. But if you have Pacheco, it looks like you can start him as like a low-end RB2. But he's going to be touchdown dependent, though.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that there are 3 games on Thursday for Thanksgiving. So we'll be doing our shows as normal up to Tuesday. And then we're going to be doing our quarterback. So tomorrow we're going to be doing our waiver wire show. Okay. Wednesday, no trade show. We're going to be doing quarterback and running back rankings on Wednesday. Thursday on Thanksgiving, no show. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, Zach.
Yeah.
And then on Friday, we'll be back in the morning instead of noon when we normally do it. So morning, so that's 9 a.m. Eastern time. And so we'll be back on at that time, and we'll go over our wide receiver and tight end rankings. And also on the Wednesday podcast before Thursday, we'll be going over the Thanksgiving games as well. So like you'll know like all the positions that are playing on Thursday. We'll talk about all of that. So so the only difference is we really won't be just doing a buy sell show this week, and going forward we probably won't either. So like usually we're probably going to be doing our quarterback ranking shows on Wednesday and Thursday, and then we got a little special show for you guys on Fridays moving forward starting next week.
Yep.
Sound good? Cool. So thanks guys for listening. That's it for this episode. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for the waiver wire show. It looks like we got to add Latavius Murray to that waiver wire list after news that Melvin Gordon was cut. So take it easy, guys. We'll talk soon. And by the way, if Melvin Gordon's available too, we probably have to add him too, depending on where he lands. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he's washed. I have no idea. But all right, guys, take it easy. I'll stop thinking out loud. You guys have a good one. Bye-bye.